il y a quelques années, il y a 20 ans de ça, lorsque en 2002, la technologie digitale commençait à peine, on avait invité George Lucas, il était venu montrer Star Wars en version numérique. Et puis au même moment, il y avait Alexander Sokourov qui montrait également un film qu'il avait fait en un seul plan. Et donc il utilisait également la technologie de la vidéo, du digital, on ne savait pas encore comment appeler tout ça. Et c'était assez beau de voir ces deux artistes communier par la technologie qui faisait aussi avancer la création artistique. Et George Lucas, que nous avons l'honneur d'accueillir et que je vais appeler en quelques instants, a toujours été à l'intersection d'un travail d'artiste, de créateur, d'auteur, et puis d'un travail d'innovateur technologique, puisque même une de ces technologies porte le nom de son premier film, et DHX. Il est toujours revenu à Cannes, il s'est toujours montré fidèle au Festival de Cannes. Je crois, j'espère que Didier Allouche va lui demander qu'il avait même signé le contrat ici à Cannes pour un truc qui aurait... C'est un truc de science-fiction avec des gens avec des sabres un peu fluo. Voilà, il avait déjà ces idées-là en tête. Et l'accueillir ici, c'est accueillir cet homme qui a une importance considérable, comme vous allez le voir, mais c'est aussi accueillir un artiste, un auteur, un créateur, un cinéaste, quelqu'un qui fait partie de la grande bande californienne, côté San Francisco, qui, à la fin des années 60 et dans les années 70, vont révolutionner le cinéma américain, et pas seulement le cinéma américain. C'est pourquoi le fait qu'il ait accepté de venir à notre rencontre et à votre rencontre est très important pour nous, et je suis sûr que vous êtes là, c'est que vous en mesurez l'importance, et demain, à l'occasion de la cérémonie de clôture, nous lui remettrons une palme d'or d'honneur, et Dieu sait qu'elle est méritée. Pour mener cette rencontre avec George Lucas, je vous remercie d'accueillir et d'applaudir Didier Allouche. Et y a-t-il meilleur moyen de rendre hommage à un homme d'image qu'en montrant ses films, qu'en proposant un montage? Avant d'accueillir George Lucas, je vous propose un petit voyage dans le cinéma de George Lucas. George Lucas! Monteur Walter Mertz qui est ici. Et avant tout ça, puisque c'est l'émission Lucas, Mélodie, she's there. I want to thank you very much for what you've done. Madame Lucas est ici. Gentlemen, be good.
We can try. I think it's working. It should be on.
Hello.
Very simple. Comment ça va? How are you?
Fine. It's great to be here. I mean, my old classmate and co-writer and co-editor and co-everything. Walter Murch is in the audience. We were here 52 years ago when we brought THX. He did all the sound and I did all the editing. And we wrote the screenplay together. And it's quite an experience to be back here.
Okay, let's start with this. Let's start with Cannes and the homage you're getting this year with a Palme d'Or, an Honorary Palme d'Or. Just what does that mean for you? What does Cannes mean for you?
What does this mean for me?
Being in Cannes, getting the homage and the Palme d'Or.
Well, it's nostalgic, but it's also a great honor because I've obviously been back a few times before with Indiana Jones and Star Wars and whatnot, but it's always great to be recognized. Obviously we have a lot of fans and all that kind of stuff, but in terms of awards and stuff, it's I don't make the kind of movies that win awards.
That's the thing. I mean, I want to go back in time, and I want to start with your friend Steven Spielberg movie, The Fabelmans. In The Fabelmans, there is a scene where the young Steven remembers that he fell in love with cinema watching The Greatest Show on Earth. Is there a moment like that for you as a kid? Is the movie or a scene something you've seen that made you say, I want to make movies now?
Well, when I started out, I didn't do that well in high school, so I went to junior college for a couple of years and mostly studied anthropology and social sciences, and I fell in love with that. Before that time, I did try to go to an art school and learn to be an illustrator, and I did a lot of photography. I have my own dark room, and I did that a lot. So a friend of mine was going to go take the test to go to USC. He was a business major that I'd grown up with, and he said, oh, come with me, and I don't want to drive all the way up to Sacramento. They didn't have SATs in those days. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I went, and lo and behold, I passed the test. And I said, well, what am I going to take that? I don't know where they have an anthropology department. And he said, well, they have a photography department, and you love photography. I said, okay, well, I'll put that down as my major. And, but it wasn't, I got there, and it was not a photography department. It was a cinema department, where they made movies. I said, this is nuts. You go to college to make movies? In those days, the USC has been around since the 20s, and there were only like a few dozen film schools at that point. And but I got there and took a history class and an animation class, and then I had to make a lot of other, science and language and all that stuff. But I fell in love with it immediately. It was like, that was the moment I said, this is for me. I love this. So that was, because I didn't know, I come from a small town in Central California, a rural, farming community, and we didn't get foreign films or anything. We just, we'd had two theaters. One was a B movie theater, that's Roger Corman films, and an A movie theater, which had all the Hollywood films. And on weekends, once I could drive, I would drive to San Francisco and see more avant-garde films with the Kenyan Cinema, which was up there, and the people who were making these offbeat kind of art films. And I said, that's what I want to do. So I went to film school, and I made what would be considered then sort of tone poems or art films or whatever, but they didn't have the stories, but it was very just a film about motion and a film about that sort of thing. And that's what I wanted to do. And so that's what I did when I was in school. And then, but I was very successful at it. There were student films, student film festivals, and I started winning lots and lots of awards. So, and I made one which was like a 15-minute film called THX 1138, and the first film I made was an animated film called Look at Life, and that won a gazillion awards. And I just said, I love this, and I was, became kind of a hero in the department because I could do this stuff. So it's from there I won a couple of scholarships, and then I met Francis Coppola, who was directing Finding the Rainbow, and I was just a student observer, and I was bored to death. I said, I don't want to make Hollywood movies. I don't want to. I know how to do this. I was already had another scholarship with Columbia with Carl Foreman, and I said, I've seen how they make movies. I'm not interested. And he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to go over to the animation department and see if I can get a couple short ends. There was nobody there. The studio had closed down completely and had been sold to Seven Arts. The day I arrived was the day that Jack Warner was leaving. So he was walking out as I was walking in. And, it was deserted. Usually with these scholarships, you'd say, well, what department would you want to be in? Oh, I'd like to write screenplays, or I'd like to use the camera, or, and they'd give you that. But there wasn't anything there. So they stuck me over there with Francis. And he said, you look awfully bored. I said, I am bored. I'm going to go over to the animation department. And he said, well, wait. Stay here. I'll give you something to do. And it won't be that boring. So we were the only two people on the crew that was under 60 years old. We both had beards. We both went to film schools. So we were a completely different group than the crew and everybody. So yeah, that was my moment. Yeah. And from then on, I was Francis's assistant, and then I moved on.
But at this time, sorry, not only at USC, but in this period, you created a group that will change Hollywood, American cinema, and cinema forever. By the way, Paul Schrader was here last week with a movie, and he published on the internet a photo of you, Francis, and Paul, and he said about Cannes together again. This group that we created is what we call the New Hollywood. Did you realize at the time that you guys were changing everything, every word, that you were proving to the studios that we can be independent and still make movies that can make money?
Well, to be very honest with you, we weren't really that interested in making money. We were interested in making movies. That was a big difference, because we all loved movies. That was the same thing at USC Film School. You couldn't get into the movie business. It just was not possible. You were, unless you were a relative or you knew somebody and they pushed you in there, you couldn't go to the studios. It was just completely locked out. So none of us really thought we were ever going to make movies. And even our camera instructor, we came in and he said, how many of you guys want to make films? Everybody raised their hands up. None of you are going to make films. That's about as far as you're going to get. So if you want to make films, this is a hopeless exercise, and you're going to waste 2 years and forget it. So but the secret was that we all loved movies, and all we really wanted to do was make movies, even if they were just short films at school. And that was a magic time in Hollywood, which is where USC is, where the people who founded Hollywood and founded the studios, they were all retiring, because this was in the mid-60s. And in the 60s, they were all in their mid-70s, their 80s, and they were leaving, and so the studios were bought up by companies like Coca-Cola and Gulf Western and regular corporations, and they said, well, what do we do now? We don't know how to make movies. And they said, well, let's hire some agents and people that know how to make movies. But basically, they hired a lot of kids. So where we couldn't get in before, they started hiring people from film schools. Like, they must know what they're doing. Little did they know. So after Finian's Rainbow, Francis wanted to do a movie, a little movie, and we outfitted a truck, and he went to we were going to go around the country. He was going to shoot this movie. He had a script, but we didn't have any locations, we didn't have anything. It was like 12 people. It was a very small movie. And so we get in the truck and we drive across country, starting in Great Neck, New York, and going all across the country. And then we'd stop, the art department would go ahead and say, I found a good location for this scene, let's do that. And so in the end, we ended up in Ogallala, Nebraska, in a warehouse where we were shooting some of the final scenes for the movie. And Francis said, well, what are you going to do after we finish this? I said, well, I'm going to go to San Francisco. I'm going back to where I came from, and I'm going to make Kenyan cinema kind of movies, non-story movies. And he said, well, stick with me, write a script for the movie you want to do, and I'll try to get it made. I said, okay. Little did I know that I was getting paid what they gave him for me to write the script in order for me to be the catch-all assistant on the movie. But that's really how I got into it. And then when I went to San Francisco, Francis said, I'm going to come to San Francisco too. We'll start a company in San Francisco. And so...
It's American Zoetrope.
American Zoetrope. And, there were a few other film companies and filmers. Phil Kaufman was up there. John Cordy was up there. Saul Zaentz was up there. And so, I wasn't completely a void. And we said, we're going to be here. We don't want to go to Los Angeles. We don't want to be part of that. It's just not what we want. So we started making films in San Francisco. And that gave us the freedom to pretty much do whatever we wanted until I actually made THX and it didn't make any money. And then they said, oh, you owe us a lot of money. I said, well, I thought that was development fund. No, we don't want the movies. We wrote 7 screenplays. And they said, we don't want the screenplays, we don't want the movies, we don't want any of that. We want our money back. Well, for instance, I was thinking, oh my God, we don't have that kind of money. And I said, he said, well, there's this movie about Italians. And, they're going to pay me a lot of money to do it, and that'll get us out of Hawk. I said, okay, but what can I do? He said, look, if you want to make a movie, don't make one of these artsy, sci-fi whatevers. Make a comedy. I dare you to make a comedy. I said, well, I'm only 25 years old. I can do anything. So I started writing American Graffiti. And
Is it true that you signed for American Graffiti here in Cannes when you were presenting THX?
Well, what I've done is I've gone to every studio in town. My agent got me in the front door. I got the front door. They said, oh, thank you. Don't call us, we'll call you. So, that happened forever. And, but in those days, United Artists was like the pick of the studios in terms of being able to have some freedom and being able to do things. But I talked to the senior vice president there, and he said, no, that's not what we want. So Walter and I, Warner Brothers told us, hey, you're going to be in the director's fortnight and at Cannes. So that's great. It's like we could barely get the film released, let alone in a film festival. So they said, well, we're not going to pay for you to go to Cannes. It's like, if you were getting the Palme d'Or or something, then maybe we would, but you're just in the director's fortnight. That's just first-time directors. We don't care about that. So Walter and I got together and said, well, let's just take what money we have left. I didn't have that much. He didn't have that much either. And we said, let's go to Cannes and see the movie. So we did. We came to Cannes. It was raining like crazy. And we found the theater. It wasn't in a regular theater. It was in one of these side theaters. small, you know, about the size of one of these sections, and got to see the movie. We snuck in. We didn't have tickets. We didn't have anything. We just, you know, went in. And then it wasn't until really only a couple years ago when I was here with Star Wars that I went to a press conference, and one of the press got up and said, "Listen, THX, why didn't you come to the press conference that we had for you?" I said, "I didn't know there was one." I didn't know there was one. We didn't know there was a press conference. But that was that.
A lot of things we remember about this film, but the car chase was impressive. The race was impressive, and it's not the only car chase or race that you have in your films. You're kind of obsessed with speed in movies. I mean, you're the guy who put speed in space with Star Wars, and there was, since you were a student, there was this short movie called 1:42:08 that was a race, a guy running around a circuit. And why is that? Why are you so obsessed by that, like car race and speed?
When I was in high school, I was obsessed with cars, and I would cruise every night like an American Graffiti, and and I did race. I did what we call in the United States gymkhanas, which is autocrosses, usually in parking lots, but they have cones and you get to race. And I had a car and I raced, and I worked in a foreign car service and worked on cars, Renaults actually, and so I was very much into racing. And my first thing was, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drive race cars. Then I was in a really bad accident like a week before graduation from high school, and was in the hospital and all that stuff. But that's where I kind of came to realize that I wasn't that good a driver. And in racing, if you're not that good a driver, it's better not to do it. So even though I loved it, and then so what I did is I became a photographer. I was at the sports car club, and we had some racers and stuff. So I did that for a while, and then when I went to USC, I continued that. But I'd sort of given up. Once I got to film, I said, "This is it for me. I don't want to be a race driver anymore." It's always been, I've always been fascinated with it. I always love it. I love racing. I have done it, you know, I went back after a number of years and picked it up again with, you know, on a real racetrack. And then kind of decided that, well, I did some celebrity races, and I also did some other things, but you know, but then those around me, I had by that time been divorced and had I had one daughter, but then I adopted two more daughters. But we adopted the first one, so I knew how to do it. So, you know, and they all, you know, I came close to it. You know, go behind something and there'd be a big explosion, and you know, everything. Oh my God! And you know, but I would, you know, I'd park because the car that blew up was not me. But I realized that all the people around me were just saying, "Please don't do this." You know, yes, you might not die, but you also might be crippled for the rest of your life, and you've got 3 kids to watch after, and you're the only one they've got because I was a single dad. And so I said, okay. And so then I got, you know, obviously I was starting to really make movies by then. I was doing Star Wars and stuff, so it's like I said, okay, I don't have time for this anyway. Find somebody that knows how to make movies, has a story to tell, is passionate about it, and makes the movie. You don't ask the housekeepers whether they like the movie. really. I mean, I love the Hustlers. Francis let anybody come and see his cuts of some of the movies he did. And I said, Francis, they're not going to understand this movie. It's just not going to be something they understand. And, but he would listen to anybody. He still does.
Monsieur Lucas, merci beaucoup.
Il ne voulait faire qu'1 heure et quart, il a fait beaucoup plus. Et parce que vous étiez là aussi pour l'écouter. Merci à Didier, à Louche. Et merci du cadeau que vous a offert Georges Lucas. Le Festival de Cannes, le 77e Festival de Cannes, remettra à Georges Lucas une palme d'or d'honneur. Merci à vous tous d'être ici. Merci à